There was some big news that dropped on Wednesday. Our colleague, Chad Simmons, he broke the news. Number one linebacker, Zaden Walker from Ellaville, Georgia, was committing to the Dogs. Now, this is the second five-star commitment for Kirby Smart and UGA in the 2025 cycle. Walker visited Georgia over the weekend. He had great things to say coming out of that trip, but he didn't commit. He took 24 to 36 hours to think things over, and then today he let Chad Simmons put out the big news that he was a Dog. So go check that video out with Chad and I on Zaden Walker. I'll link it in the description below. But UGA now sits at number 6 in the On3 industry rankings, just outside the top 5. But here come the Dogs. All right, let's bring on Steve Wiltfong. And before we get into the visit weekend, you made some news this week. You put in a pick for Isaiah Gibson, who is committed to USC, but you see him flipping. Explain that pick, and is it something that you see coming to fruition soon, or just an outlook for the future?
I just think it's something that I think is ultimately going to happen. Him and his mom family were back on campus this past weekend for his official visit to Georgia. And I think coming out of that trip, Isaiah sees himself succeeding at Georgia with their track record of player development. Got back around Coach Chidera, Uzo Deribe, Coach Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann, and that coaching staff. And I think that the stars are beginning to align for Georgia ultimately to land Isaiah Gibson. Now, there's still plenty of competition. Obviously, he's committed to USC, set to take an official visit to South Carolina this weekend. There's a few others in play, but this is a very coveted target for Georgia, Kirby Smart and company. And I wouldn't be surprised if this one wraps up kind of similar to the way it did for KJ Bolden, the top-ranked safety in the country last year, who flipped from Florida State to Georgia late in the process. Everybody knew KJ Bolden was probably going to flip. Was it going to be Auburn? Was it going to be Georgia? I think we think Isaiah Gibson's going to flip. Is it going to be somewhere else in the SEC or Georgia? I think it's going to be the Bulldogs when all's said and done.
All right, now let's focus back on campus this weekend. Now, I told you Zaden Walker committed. He joins Jordan Perlotti on that linebacker commit list for the Dogs, but I talked to Rusty Mansell of Dogs HQ today. He told me they're taking at least one more, and there are 2 elite linebackers on campus this weekend, Tavian Wallace and Ty Jackson. How do you see this one playing out? Do you think maybe Georgia could land them both? Is there one that you think they're in better in position with than the other?
Well, I think that they could land both. You talked about Jaden Perlotti. There's a chance Jaden Perlotti doesn't sign with Georgia.
That's good,
and then Luke Metz is another one that's on the board right now for Georgia, and Alabama linebacker commit. But Tavian Wallace, Ty Jackson, those are 2 guys that Georgia has invested a lot of time in as we head into the summer of the process. We got a chance to spend a lot of time with Ty Jackson and his family at the On3 Elite Series, and there's no question that Georgia is one of the front runners for him going into this weekend's official visit. I think Alabama is another program that he's super high on as he continues through his process and tries to figure out where he's going to go. Tavian Wallace, my On3 RPM, is on Florida State right now. Mm-hmm. I know at the On3 Elite Series, he said that Florida was the biggest challenger to Florida State. He did grow up a Gators fan, but it's just hard for me to ignore Georgia. Glenn Schumann has done a fantastic job in this process. And Tavian Wallace, his brother out of Kentucky, just got drafted in the 3rd round, Trevin Wallace. Mm-hmm. And I think he wants to go higher. It's like a personal goal. Well, Georgia can point towards numerous first-round linebackers that have been selected. And so I think that's something that puts them in good position here, too, with Tavian Wallace. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Jaden Perlotti. They definitely have Zaden Walker in the fold, who kind of fits that rugged physical play style that Georgia has. He can run. He's tough. He hits hard. Also looks good on offense on the high school level. Now they're all in on Tavian Wallace and Ty Jackson, and it's a big official visit weekend for both of them.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens there. More top talent in Athens. Here we go. Couple 5-stars at the top of this list, and David Sanders and DJ Pickett. David Sanders coming off that Clemson visit. We know he's not in a position to make a decision anytime soon. He's going to take all his visits, but this is a really important one, huh?
Well, I think Georgia's always been at or near the top of his list, and he said as much to you at the On3 Elite Series. Now, we've had some pulse changes or some teams that we think are hot in this process, but Georgia has maintained consistency throughout as one of the top programs. He was recently back on campus for the Kirby Smart scavenger hunt. Now he comes in for his official visit. And I talked to a source today that felt like Georgia and Tennessee were the 2 front runners. Now, I'm certainly not sleeping on Ohio State. I also think that they are one of the teams in the lead. We talked about this on Inside Scoop yesterday, Josh, that those are the 3 programs I'm watching the most right now. Bulldogs, Buckeyes, and Vols. We'll see if Alabama can make a move with their official visit. He was just at Clemson. Obviously, he loves Clemson. They're have always been a school under serious consideration. But Georgia's one that I think has a great chance to land him. It's another big visit. And Georgia's bringing back their commit, Mason Short, who David Sanders has built a really good friendship with. Mason's going to be back on campus this weekend. They hung out at the scavenger hunt. Mm-hmm. So David, as he gets comfortable with the players in the locker room, they already like Coach Searles. Going to spend a lot of more time with Kirby Smart, and they're going to hammer home player development. That's going to be a big thing for Georgia and how they've been able to take their 5-star offensive lineman and turn around, and they're in the first round of the NFL draft 3 to 4 years later.
All right, DJ Pickett, he's the next up on our list. Now, he's the 5-star cornerback from the state of Florida, and DJ Pickett told me, don't sleep on Oregon. That's what he said when we were in Nashville for the Elite Series, but I don't think many people are sleeping on Oregon when it comes to DJ Pickett, but I do think that maybe if there's a dark horse, I won't call him a sleeper, but if there's a dark horse in this recruitment, I think it's kind of Georgia. I think people know that Miami's involved. People know that LSU's involved. People know that Oregon's involved, but I don't think Georgia is given the credit in DJ Pickett's recruitment. What are you hearing heading into this one?
Well, I think coming into this one, I think it's safe to say that they trail some of the other ones that we've been high on and speaking on a lot. You know, he's coming off his official visit to LSU. I would probably give them the momentum, even coming into that official visit. He's had a couple other great visits to Baton Rouge where he feels at home. Corey Raymond, that connection. The family knows Patrick Peterson, et cetera, et cetera. Family's got all those ties to Miami. If Miami has a great year, we think it could be hard for him to say no to Miami. The family then came back and said, well, same thing with Florida. So if Florida has a great year, that first game, he is going to be at that Florida-Miami game. It is going to be electric to open the season. And that is going to be a game that could move the needle with a lot of in-state recruits. I'm so fired up for Florida, Miami to start the season. And Pickett's taking his official visit for that one. Now, Georgia, there was a time last fall where I thought that Pickett was close to committing to Florida because of Corey Raymond being in Florida at the time. But Fran Brown used to be the defensive backs coach at Georgia, and they were in early on Pickett and got him to campus a couple times. And if Fran Brown were still the defensive back coach at Georgia, I don't think there'd be a better relationship in the country than DJ Pickett and Fran Brown. Mm-hmm. And we'd be talking about Georgia's position with DJ Pickett a lot differently. But a lot of the other stuff about Georgia still remains, the track record of player development, Kirby Smart's background as a DB coach and all that. So they're going to get on campus. His dad hasn't been there. They haven't had a chance to see Georgia practice, things like that. So I think that they're going to get an inside look at the program, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking more about Georgia coming out. DJ's not making a decision till the fall, so that gives, if this is a great visit, that gives them more time to get back to Athens another time after this.
I was recently introduced to Roback, and I couldn't be more excited. When I say impressed by the quality and comfort, I mean it. I literally can't take this stuff off since trying it on. For starters, the Roback polos are my favorite polos. They not only have fun designs for every occasion and season, but they fit perfectly and easily transition throughout the day. Roback's everyday shorts are the perfect pairing as well. They are so comfortable and have an elastic waistband and great fabric that is made to stretch. Finally, the Roback hoodie is by far my favorite piece of clothing I own. It is so comfortable. I wear this to start my day, end my day, and everything in between. Easy to be active in it or just relax. The hoodie will fit whatever the day has in store. They have also released a ton of new products. Between their brand new Tailwind tees and bathing suits, Roback is ready for the warm weather. Roback has also been proudly leading the NIL charge, having signed partnerships with college stars Jalen Milroe, Cade Klubnik, among many others that are becoming the go-to brand for college athletes. Use the code STEVE on Roback.com for a generous 20% off for all new customers through the end of this week. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. That's 20% off all performance polos, shorts, and more with the code STEVE.
All right. Now, Edge Jared Smith, he's also going to be on campus this weekend, and his recruitment is heating up. I think this one, by the end of summer, is going to be red hot. How do you see this competition shaking out?
Well, Georgia already has one edge rusher committed in Darren Akinebong out of the northern East Coast. So I think that they love that they have that in the fold. We got him trending for Isaiah Gibson. Bryce Davis is someone else that I like them for as he continues through his process. Bryce was at Clemson last weekend. He's at Duke this weekend, Georgia next weekend, South Carolina penciled in. I'm still riding with Georgia there. That would probably conclude the class. Jared Smith's a guy that's certainly near the top of the list too. I like the Gamecocks there. I haven't heard anything different. Ole Miss got an official last month and that moved the needle. But I'm still with South Carolina for Jared Smith right now. I think Georgia would have to make up a lot of ground this weekend.
All right, and then we got two elite wide receivers on campus, and C.J. Wiley and Derek Meadows. And I feel that C.J., obviously both are at the top of their board. They like them both a lot. They would take them both. But I feel like C.J. Wiley, maybe pencil him in to Georgia's class, but Derek Meadows, more of a long shot here. Am I right in that?
Well, Derek Meadows visited Georgia this spring, and I was told that Kirby Smart was one of his favorite head coaches. I think Notre Dame may have the edge or the inches in this recruitment. He was just at Michigan this past weekend for a phenomenal visit. LSU's in there. Alabama, like we said at the top of the show, he's one of their most coveted players at wideout. I might say Alabama is near the top of the list with Notre Dame right now, but we'll see what happens with Georgia this weekend. But all eyes on C.J. Wiley.
Right.
Travis Smith Jr. is someone that we think Georgia has a great shot to land at the wide receiver position. C.J. Wiley is at the top of their board regardless of position as well. They're bad on LSU, Florida State. He was just at USC this past weekend. Georgia's really trying to make a big move with C.J. Wiley this weekend. They think he's a special talent.
All right. Now, and I agree with you on Meadows. I think it's probably Notre Dame, maybe Alabama right there, 1A, 1B. But like you said, he's going to head to Athens this weekend. Anything can happen. Running back Todd Robinson, a really interesting story, played quarterback, was a late eval. Georgia offered as a running back. His recruitment blew up. Now this weekend he's in Athens. Is this a guy that they could lock down this weekend?
And he was recently at camp for Georgia where he participated on both sides of the ball. I think he could play running back or in the secondary on the next level. He's a terrific player, as you said, dynamic under center. Chad Simmons has an on-3 RPM in favor of the Bulldogs. I have an on-3 RPM in favor of Georgia. So we like the way this is setting up for Georgia. And like we talked about before the first Georgia official visit weekend, Georgia's not messing around. They want guys to jump in right now, guys that we see out there that have decision timelines for down the road. That's out the window, man. Zaden Walker, he just committed today. I think we're going to see other guys that could pop sooner rather than later for Georgia. So I wouldn't be surprised if Todd Robinson's one of the next ones in the fold as well.
All right, Georgia fans, big weekend in Athens. Tap in, talk to us, comment section below. How do we feel about this weekend? Is Todd Robinson going to come off the board? Will there be any other surprises? Let us know, comment section below. Well, you've made it to the end of today's video, but there's hundreds more videos on the On3 Recruits channel for you to check out. And also, while you're here, hit subscribe.